So first off, I'm a huge fan of you guys. I've been a fan of you guys since ever. So I'm going to try to keep my fanboying to a minimum and keep this as, entertaining for the audience as possible.
Cool.
Um, so yeah, thank you so much for taking some time and chatting with a small YouTube channel such as myself. Um,
You're
yeah, I'm
welcome.
joined.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you. I'm joined by Peter Nicholls and Mike Holmes from IQ, seminal progressive band from the 80s. Um, and then I think you guys really skyrocketed, at least in my mind, with your first two records and in the mid 90s with Ever. So again, thank you for such amazing music. And we're here to talk about your new album, Dominion.
Cool.
Yeah, it's being released in a couple weeks, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
And it's been 6 years since your last record of Resistance, and I've noticed that you've been keeping a fairly consistent output of about one album every 5 or so years. And I'm wondering, how are you able to maintain this kind of scheduling of records? And was Dominion different than your last, I'd say, like 3 or 4 records?
Well,
It's not a purposeful schedule, really.
Yeah.
It just kind of happened like that. But as Pete was saying recently, we're hoping that it's going to be quite a bit quicker for the next one.
Yeah.
Um, I guess for this one, COVID had an effect on the timescale.
Mhm.
Um, and also beforehand, I mean, we're all a fair bit older now, but beforehand we all had day jobs, and that would get in the way of being able to do things quickly. Um, so yeah, it wasn't a schedule that we thought, right, this is it, we're going to adhere to this. It was just circumstances, really.
Mhm. Yeah,
yeah, and
and
also, I
go
was just
for it.
going to say each album, tends to take about 2 years to put together. So we don't leave it 5 years and then start on the next album.
Right.
While stuff's not happening publicly, there's plenty going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, for sure. And I know for this album, I read that you did a lot of like other recordings, like other songs that didn't make it onto this record. And unlike, say, The Road of Bones, which had a bonus disc, or Resistance that had a two disc, these ones just weren't left on the cutting room or on the album itself. And I'm wondering, what was the reason and the rationale for that? And also, will we be able to hear these tracks in the final form eventually?
I'm sure you will eventually. Yeah, I mean, I think we always tend to kind of exercise quite a strong quality control when we're doing an album. So it's not unusual for us to write stuff and even to record stuff that doesn't make it onto the album. And you're right. With this album, there was kind of an album's worth of material that we recorded that we decided not to put out at the moment. I think one of the reasons for that was is 2025 is a has turned out to be a busy year for IQ. There's a lot of gigs, and we wanted to have the album out at the start of all of that as the kind of the top of the pyramid, and everything would filter down from that. And I think had we worked on the other material and put out a bonus disc with the Dominion album, that would have delayed the whole project, and probably the whole thing wouldn't have appeared for another 3 or 4 months. And we just felt it was important to have the album out at the start of proceedings, so everything would follow on from that. But yeah, I'm sure it will appear at some point. I couldn't possibly say when, but yeah, I think we've always had a lot of material that kind of doesn't make it through to the final album, so this isn't unusual for us.
As it happens, this album was intended to have a bonus disc, and we've recorded, I guess, at least half an hour of all the stuff.
I think
Um,
it's more than that, actually, Mike.
is it? Let me just stop
Oh,
that strange noise there. Um, is it more than that?
I think so, yeah, because you did a kind of a mix of the first 20 minutes.
Half an hour.
Yeah, but there was stuff I remember I'd recorded stuff that wasn't included in that
Fair enough. Yeah,
original medley. So yeah, I think there's probably 40 minutes worth, something like that.
cool.
Oh, amazing. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing that after hearing Dominion and seeing like the styles and the flow of it. And this is a little bit of a different beast than The Resistance or Road of Bones before it. And I'm also wondering, how does this album differ for you guys in terms of the writing process and the final product of this one in comparison to, say, like your last two or three records?
I think that the writing process is pretty similar to the way it has been for the last two or three albums, which is that Mike has been largely responsible for the music. And I think for me, in terms of the lyrics, um, Resistance was quite a dark place for me at that time. And Dominion represents a kind of a clearer period in my life, a more optimistic time, and I think that's reflected more in the lyrics. And I think there's a real feeling now of kind of embracing the present. The past is gone, the future is unknown. What we have is the current time right now, today, and there's a feeling for me that it's important to do things now and to make use of the time that we have right now. So there's a kind of, I think there's a more of an urgent message in this album, which is make best use of the time that we have. And I think, we're fairly old guys now, and we know the band can't keep going forever. And it's interesting, at a time when other people are kind of stopping doing things, we have no desire to call it a day. We're just going to keep going as long as we physically can. And it feels like a rebirth for the band right now. I'm speaking personally. I think, it's a real strong positivism in the band right now. And I think while we have the time, while we have the energy, while we have our health to keep doing it, I think we really want to, because once it's gone, it's gone. We're not going to, get back on the comeback trail when we're 75.
Right.
So I think it's really, really important that we make the best use of the time that we have now.
Not only that, but you were saying it's a more positive thing overall. I think, given the current state of global politics, I think it's really good for us as artists and anyone who wants to, is just to say, you really do need to live your life
Mm.
and you create your own life and live your best life, and don't let anybody tell you that it's wrong, or you can't live like that. You have to be yourself.
Yeah, such a
Yeah.
strong message at this point, especially
Mm,
with, as you say, everything that's going on externally for sure.
mm, mm,
So, no, that's great to hear. As much as I love Resistance, it was very dark, as you were saying, and I really like
Mm.
some of the more optimal and pleasant sounds on this record. Um, and this record starts off with a 20-minute epic, and you guys aren't, I guess, shy away from the 20-minute epics. And I'm a huge progressive rock and prog head myself, so I'm wondering what is it about these longer stretches of tracks that um, get you guys excited to write more of these? Because sometimes bands will just write one and done. So, what is it about these tracks that appeal to you that make you want to write more of these 20-minute ish tracks?
I think, like we were saying earlier, um, like Pete said, I tend to write most of the music now. And for me, the music kind of lets me know if it's finished or not. You get a sense of, you do a demo, you play it back, and you listen to it 2,000 bleeding times,
Mhm.
and then but you know if it's there or not, and you know whether it has more to say or not, and that's been true through the whole of our career. We never, believe it or not, we never set out to write a 20-minute track.
Right.
We just write stuff, and if it feels like it needs more, or if it has more to say, either lyrically or musically, we carry on, really.
And
That's
by the
great.
same token, there's a track on the album, One of Us, which is about 3 minutes long.
Mhm.
And that felt like it had said all it wanted to say in three
Mm,
minutes. And that was
yeah.
a good place to leave it. We could have extended it another 3 or 4 minutes, but why? It felt it was concise and said all it needed to say in those 3 minutes.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I Nothing bothers me more when a song ends when I feel like it could be going on. And then likewise, when a song continues to go on, I'm like, okay, you've already stayed your welcome. Like, let's move on. Let's move on to something
Yeah, yeah,
different.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, Amazing. So, one of the last things that I wanted to touch upon is with IQ being such a seminal progressive rock band within the 80s, what was it like for you guys to kind of go against the form when 80s was nothing but like punk or new wave or that kind of, I guess, a zeitgeist at that time? And I think it was only like you and maybe Marillion that was still kind of flying the progressive rock band. So, what was it for you guys to reach all the way
Well,
back?
in the early 80s, there was quite a bunch of bands playing progressive rock, and I think we all had the same battle, which was trying to defend why we were doing that.
Hmm.
And when we were kind of starting out and playing at the Marquee, uh, there was what has been termed the progressive rock revival, which I think was just a useful tag that the press came up with. But I think we were all fans of the music that was going around at the time. We all liked Duran Duran and Culture Club and all of that stuff. We were pop music fans, but right from the outset, we were having to defend playing progressive rock, and I think we just kind of flew the flag along with the other bands. And I think what we always had was a strong belief in ourselves. We knew it wasn't particularly in fashion, but that kind of meant that it wasn't going to go out of fashion as well. So I think we've managed to maintain our self belief for nearly 45 years now, and we've just kind of there was a time when prog was very very unhip and very you had to very secretly admit I'm in a prog band. um, but now actually in recent years, in the last 10 years or so, it's kind of become quite cool, I think, and people don't mind admitting that they quite like some of the classic prog stuff of years gone by and the current prog stuff. So it's kind of, I think if you just hold your nerve and stick with it, it all comes good in the end.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, I agree. It was very much like you had to go and buy a prog album, then put it in a brown paper bag and carry it home on the tube.
Yeah.
But after a while, you just think, oh, well, sod it. This is what comes out. Like I was saying before, you have to be true to yourself, and
Mm.
this is what comes out, and this is what we do. And everybody has the choice of listen or not.
Amazing. The last little question that I'll have is I get contacted pretty regularly by up and coming bands and artists, and they always want to know what can I do to break out? What can I do to set myself apart? And I'm wondering what can I tell these new hungry artists of how can they break out? How can they set themselves apart from other bands since nowadays there's a lot of music going on.
For me, because I do get sent quite a few things with my GEP hat on,
Hmm.
um, to listen to. And for me, the most important thing is quality control. Make sure that you're really happy with what you're putting out. And if you write something and you're not quite sure about it, don't put it out. Go and revisit it, edit it again, and just just be really proud of what you're putting out. And I think that will come across. The other thing I would say to um, smaller bands is you can never play too much. Um, for us, when we were first starting out, we used to just play some awful places, often to one person. But you get a lot of uh, I don't know what's the right word, Pete. Um, just having all that stuff behind you, eventually you learn how to um, feel confident on the stage. I mean, feeling confident to one person is a lot more difficult than feeling confident to 100 people on stage.
Mm.
Um, so that's what I would say.
I think it's down to self belief, isn't it? Just like Mike said, just have the confidence to believe in what you're doing. Only you can do what you do, and even if you're influenced by somebody else, you'll still bring something unique to it because it's you doing it. So any new band, any new group of musicians, they will always do something that's individual to them, despite their influences. I mean, everybody starts off being kind of the sum of their influences, but I think we found our identity very quickly, and I think any band that does that, and like Mike says, through in our early days, it was just through constant gigging. That's the only thing that we had. That was our only outlet, really. And we would play to a handful of people and hope that next time we went back to the venue, there might be 10 more people there. And it was a very slow incremental build up, but we had to have that belief in ourselves. And I would say that's the most important thing. Just kind of be confident that what you're doing, only you can do.
And don't ever let anybody tell you that it's wrong or you can't do it. That's
Mm.
what I would say.
That's great. Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of the newer bands that are watching this will appreciate that. The last thing we'll end on is with the new Dominion album. What can fans expect from this album that we haven't already touched upon? I know it's very optimistic, very exciting, but almost like a little tagline about this record.
Um,
I'm
I,
putting you on the spot. I'm sorry.
Damn, these are hard
well,
questions.
one thing we always do try and do, if we can, is to get um, new ideas, but new sounds into the recording as well. And so there's quite a few things in here that people may not expect. Specifically, there's one for me. I don't know if people know this, but I'm a big um, house and trance person. I love all that kind of music, and I used to be a DJ in the '90s, and I've always wanted to try and get that kind of sound into IQ. And we did a bit this time, which is great.
It's great.
And I've used some different words this time as well. So
Oh,
so that's
excellent.
new.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bringing out the whole dictionary.
Oh yeah. Well, I wouldn't go that far.
Okay. Okay. Amazing. Well, thank you both for taking some time out of your day and chatting with me, Michael and Peter. This has been a real pleasure, and I can't wait for everybody else to hear this new record.
Thank
Cool.
you so much.
Good to meet you.
Yeah.